Richard's smile stayed fixed, a mask of porcelain perfection, but his eyes hardened to steel. "Stand up, Caroline." His voice carried over the murmurs, a command dressed as a plea. Laura touched his arm, her manicured nails gleaming red against his tuxedo sleeve. "Richard, it's okay." "No, it's not okay." He rose, all 6 feet of him towering over the table, commanding the room like he'd commanded boardrooms and courtrooms for decades. "My daughter seems to have forgotten her manners. Perhaps she'd like to explain to our guests why she's choosing to disrespect her father on his wedding day." The silence was deafening, a vacuum sucking the air from my lungs. Every eye in the room pinned me in place. James adjusting his cufflinks, Laura's cousin Emily watching with a flicker of something I couldn't name. I felt the weight of Mom's letter in my clutch, 6 pages of truth I hadn't opened yet, waiting for this moment. My legs moved before my mind caught up. I stood slowly, smoothing the burgundy bridesmaid dress, the fabric cool against my clammy hands. "I'm not disrespecting anyone," I said, my voice stronger than I felt, cutting through the hush. "I'm honoring a promise." Richard laughed, a sharp, hollow sound that didn't reach his eyes. "A promise? To whom?" "To Mom." The color drained from his face, leaving him ghostly under the chandelier glow. Laura's hand flew to her throat, her diamond necklace glinting like a warning. James suddenly found his champagne fascinating, swirling it in his glass. "Your mother's been gone for 2 years," Richard said, through clenched teeth, each word a dagger aimed at me. "This behavior is beneath you, Caroline. You're making a scene." I met his gaze, unflinching. "You're right, Dad. I am making a scene. But trust me, this is nothing compared to what's coming." Gasps rippled through the crowd. His face turned an alarming shade of red, veins bulging at his temples. "You're a disgrace," he spat. "Leave. Now." "Gladly," I shot back, grabbing my clutch. The storm was just beginning. I pushed through the ballroom doors, the clatter of heels on marble echoing like a countdown. The hotel corridor stretched ahead, dim and endless, the laughter fading behind me. My clutch pressed against my hip, Mom's letter a live wire inside it. 6 pages she'd written on her deathbed, sealed with a promise I hadn't broken yet. Quick footsteps snapped me out of my haze. "Caroline, wait!" I turned to see Maggie Thompson, Mom's oldest friend, her dark eyes wide with concern. Her graying hair framed a face etched with years of loyalty. "Are you okay, mija?" she asked, catching up, her breath short. "More than okay." I pulled the letter from my clutch, its edges worn from 2 years of waiting. "Remember what Mom said about karma?" Maggie's eyes widened as she recognized the envelope. "She comes when she's ready." Well, I tucked it back, safe. Karma's about to make one hell of an entrance. She squeezed my hand, her grip warm and steady. "Be careful, Caroline. Your father has it coming, but he won't go down easy." My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the hotel bar in 10 minutes. We need to talk." I glanced at Maggie, then toward the elevator. "This is just the beginning," I said, stepping inside. The doors slid shut, and in the mirror, I saw Mom's features staring back. Dark hair, olive skin, that same fire in my eyes. "I'm doing this for you," I whispered. The elevator hummed downward, carrying me toward the truth. The hotel bar was a cocoon of low lights and leather, the heavy wooden doors muffling the wedding's chaos. Emily Carter sat in a corner booth, 2 martinis glistening on the table, her blonde hair sharp against her black dress. Laura's cousin, but something in her gaze, keen, knowing, told me she wasn't here for family loyalty. I slid into the seat across from her, the letter burning a hole in my clutch. She pushed a martini toward me. "Your mother knew, didn't she?" Her voice dropped, barely above the jazz, humming through the speakers. "About Richard's dealings with James?" I took a careful sip, the gin biting my tongue, studying her face, calm, but her fingers tapped a rhythm on the glass. "Why don't you tell me what you know first?" Fair enough. She leaned forward, pulling out her phone, and hit play on a recording. Richard's voice crackled through. Move the funds offshore before the audit, James. Use the usual channels. Make sure Laura doesn't find out. She's not as understanding as Ellen was. My hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms. 3 months ago, Emily said, pausing it. I overheard them at the firm. I handle accounts for Laura's clients. I pulled out Mom's letter, still sealed. 2 years ago, she called me to her hospital bed. Handed me this, made me promise not to open it until Dad remarried. I traced the envelope, feeling its weight. She was an accountant before she got sick, noticed discrepancies, started digging. What's in it? Emily's eyes locked on mine. Evidence, I said, voice steady, enough to bury him. The bartender passed and we fell silent, but the air between us crackled with purpose. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice, and I wasn't alone anymore. The old lighthouse loomed against the darkening sky, its silhouette a jagged scar on the horizon. Rain slicked the gravel path as I parked a block away, my forensics training screaming this was a terrible idea, meeting an unknown contact alone at night. But Mom's letter pulsed in my clutch, and the text from last night, I know what happened to Susan. Old lighthouse, come alone, had ignited a fire I couldn't douse. My hand rested on the pepper spray in my pocket as I approached, the wind carrying salt and secrets. A figure emerged from the shadows, and I froze, heart slamming against my ribs. I wasn't sure you'd come. The woman stepped closer, early 40s, kind eyes peering from beneath a maintenance worker's cap, Rachel embroidered on her uniform. Her voice carried a weight I recognized, years of holding something heavy. You know about Susan? I kept my distance, scanning her body language for deception. No twitches, no lies in her posture. I should. I cleaned her house for 15 years. Rachel glanced around, nervous, then gestured to the keeper's cottage. Not here, inside. The small space was well kept, a single bulb casting long shadows, as she locked the door and drew the curtains. I'm the lighthouse keeper now, 10 years, quiet, isolated, perfect for keeping secrets. What secrets? My voice sharpened, cutting through the musty air. She pulled out an old photo album, and my knees buckled as she opened it. Susan Powell, younger, radiant, her belly swollen with pregnancy, stood before a Christmas tree. She was pregnant when she disappeared, Rachel said. December 1992? 3 months before you were born? The implications hit like a physical blow. Are you saying Susan had a daughter? My voice shook as she turned the page. A baby girl with dark curls. My curls. Your half-sister? Jessica? Rachel whispered, shoving the album into my hands. A car door slammed outside and she rushed to the window. James's car! Go! Back door! Through the garden! Beach path! I clutched the album and ran, fear making me sure-footed in the dark, the truth chasing me faster than James ever could. I burst into Emily's house, the photo album trembling in my hands, rain dripping from my hair onto her hardwood floor. She didn't flinch, just pointed to the coffee table already littered with papers, Mom's letter, still sealed, and printouts from her firm. What's wrong? She asked, shutting the door behind me, her pajamas a stark contrast to the war room we'd made of her living room. I thrust the album at her, pages falling open to Susan and the baby. I have a sister, Jessica, Susan's daughter. Emily's eyes widened, but she didn't hesitate, spreading the photos beside Mom's letter like puzzle pieces. How did Rachel know? Her voice was steady, pulling me back from the edge of panic. She worked for Susan, said she disappeared pregnant, December 92. I sank onto the couch, the timeline clawing at me. 3 months before I was born. Emily grabbed a photo with a timestamp, March 15th, 1993. Susan still pregnant. My breath caught. That's impossible unless... Twins, Emily finished, her voice gentle but firm. Separated at birth. One to Ellen, one to Susan. She pulled her laptop from the chaos, plugging in the USB from Mom's letter. A video loaded, Mom's gaunt face filling the screen, her eyes sharp despite the hospital pallor. Jessica, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I've known about you for years, stayed silent to protect you and Caroline. Your father threatened your career if I told. You deserve the truth, both of you. Tears burned my eyes as the screen froze on her face. She's a doctor in Seattle, I said, voice cracking. Knows everything but stayed quiet. Emily typed rapidly, pulling up Dr. Jessica Hayes, Seattle General Hospital. Then we find her, she said, squeezing my hand. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in with the weight of Mom's sacrifice. Richard had split us apart, but Mom had left us a map to find each other. I wouldn't let him win, not now, not ever. Seattle's rain was colder than home, a persistent sting as Emily and I huddled under an umbrella outside Seattle General Hospital. Doctors and nurses hurried past, white coats flashing, but my eyes locked on her, Jessica Hayes, exiting the building, dark curls framing a face that could have been my mirror, 2 years older. Her keys jingled as she headed for the parking garage, and before I could lose my nerve, I stepped into her path. Doctor? Hayes? She stopped, eyes narrowing as she took me in, recognition flickering like a spark, then darkening. You're Richard's daughter. Her voice was steel, keys slipping from her hand to clatter on the wet pavement. Emily retrieved them as Jessica stared, her composure cracking. I'm your sister. The words hung heavy between us, rain drumming a tense rhythm. She glanced around, nervous, then nodded toward a coffee shop across the street. Not here. Follow me. Inside, the tension thickened at our corner table, her untouched coffee steaming as she leaned forward. I assume you found Mom's letter? Ellen's, yeah. She contacted you. I kept my tone even, watching her hands wrap tighter around the mug. 6 months before she died. We met in secret. She pulled out her phone, showing a photo, her and Mom in a hospital garden, frail but smiling. She wanted to make things right, but Richard's lawyers threatened my career. Emily set up her laptop, playing Mom's video. Jessica's hands trembled as she watched, tears spilling. I never knew she recorded this. All these years, I thought she chose to give me away. Dad chose, I said, the truth bitter on my tongue. He split us up, paid Susan to disappear with you. I met her gaze, fire matching fire. And now he's about to pay for it. Emily opened a file. Ellen's records, spreadsheets of bribes to judges, regulators, hospitals. James set it all up, Jessica added, pulling out her own USB. He's been paying me too, monthly deposits to keep quiet. I've kept everything. The pieces clicked into place, a web of lies we'd tear apart together. Why didn't you expose them? I asked. Because of Susan, she said, voice breaking. My other mother. Richard threatened her MS care, but now... She straightened. I'm done hiding. Jessica drove us to a small house on Seattle's outskirts, the rain a steady heartbeat against the windshield. Susan's place, she said, unlocking the door. She's at a treatment center this week. We're safe here. Inside, the air smelled of lavender and old paper, a home office lined with filing cabinets, decades of evidence against Richard. My phone buzzed. Pierce is in Seattle. Be careful, Mija, Maggie's warning tightening my chest. We need to move fast, Emily said, eyeing the files. Jessica pulled a drawer open, revealing bank statements, recorded calls, threats in Richard's own words. Everything's here, enough to put them in prison. I traced a payment slip, monthly sums to Susan, starting before she vanished, continuing until Mom got sick. He kept paying her, I said, realization dawning. Unless there was something or someone, he needed quiet. Me, Jessica finished, her voice steel. He didn't stop until Ellen pushed back. Emily's laptop chimed, an email alert. She went pale. James just transferred $5 million offshore. They know we're here. Then let them watch. Jessica handed Emily a key. Everything's duplicated in a safety deposit box. First National, under Ellen's maiden name. Headlights swept the windows. James's men. Back door, Jessica whispered, grabbing her purse. We slipped into the basement, emerging 2 blocks away where Maggie waited in her car, engine running. Ready? She asked, dark eyes scanning us. I looked at Jessica, seeing my own determination mirrored back, 2 sisters forged in the same fire. Ready, we said together. The files in my hands felt like a loaded gun. Mom's letter its trigger. Richard thought he'd buried the truth with her, but he'd underestimated us both. As we sped through the rain-slicked streets, I touched the letter on the seat beside me. I'm getting close, Mom, I whispered. I promise. The night swallowed us, but the light of justice burned brighter with every mile, and this time we weren't running from him. We were running toward his end. Richard's choice of restaurant, an upscale Italian joint with dim lights and mahogany walls, reeked of his old power plays, a place where he'd sealed deals over risotto and red wine. Jessica and I walked in, the clatter of plates fading as eyes turned to us. He'll try to buy us off, Jessica whispered, her voice ice as we spotted him at a corner table, Laura beside him looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. James lingered nearby, pretending to dine alone, his fork hovering over untouched pasta. Richard stood, arms wide, his voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. My daughters, please, sit, both of them now. Laura's hands shook as she clutched her napkin. Richard, what's going on? He shot her a warning look. Not here, dear. But the waiter's arrival with wine gave us our opening. Richard raised his glass. To family reunions. Neither Jessica nor I moved. His sigh was theatrical, a predator playing weary. Still sulking? Fine. Let's talk business. He pulled out a checkbook. Name your price. You think you can buy our silence? Jessica's tone was a blade, cutting through his charade. Like, you bought Susan's? Laura's head snapped up, her voice trembling. Who's Susan? Richard waved it off. Nobody, ancient history. But Jessica pulled out her phone, showing Laura the photos from the Lighthouse album. I'm his daughter, his firstborn. Well, technically, we both were. Laura's face went white. Twins? Richard, you said Caroline was your only child. I slid Mom's letter across the table, its edges worn but its weight undeniable. He tells a lot of lies. Read it. Richard's hand shot out to snatch it, but Jessica was faster, handing it to Laura, who opened it with trembling fingers. Don't, he warned, voice low, but Emily appeared from the shadows, sliding into the seat beside Laura. Keep reading. Page 4's the best part. Richard's face turned purple, veins pulsing. This is family business, I laughed, sharp and bitter. Family? You separated twins, bribed doctors, threatened Susan's MS care to silence Jessica? That's not family. That's organized crime. Laura gasped at page 4. Offshore accounts, bribes, and James stood, moving toward us, but Maggie entered with 2 FBI agents. Nobody's leaving, she said, except maybe you, James. Richard's chair crashed backward as he lunged to his feet. You can't prove anything! Jessica pulled out a recorder, her voice calm. We can prove everything, including this conversation. The agents moved in, cuffs gleaming, and Laura yanked her arm free from Richard's grasp. I want an annulment, she spat, tears streaming. His empire was crumbling, and we were the wrecking ball. The warehouse glowed against the night, a fortress of steel and secrets, expensive cars lined up outside like soldiers awaiting orders. Jessica and I slipped through the shadows, Mom's laptop under her arm, Susan's recordings in my pocket, evidence Richard couldn't buy his way out of. Through the windows, James addressed a room of suits, his voice smooth as oil. With these new arrangements, the company's assets will be fully protected. Protected from what, I wondered, as we pushed the door open, the hinges creaking like a gunshot. Protected from what, James? My voice sliced through the room, heads whipping toward us. The board members murmured, ties loosening, as Jessica held up the laptop. Maybe we should play them the highlights, starting with March 15th, 1993. James's face went ashen, his hand fumbling for his phone, but Emily called from the doorway. Security's busy, talking to the FBI outside. The room erupted, board members scrambling for exits, papers scattering like leaves in a storm. James tapped frantically at his phone, trying to delete files, but Jessica booted the laptop, Mom's voice spilling out. Richard threatened your career if I told, followed by Susan's recordings of James orchestrating the cover-up. It's over, I said, stepping forward. For you and Dad both. He lunged toward me, desperation in his eyes. You don't understand what you're doing. The company will collapse. It'll survive, Jessica countered, her smile grim. Under new leadership, honest leadership. FBI agents stormed in, their boots thudding against the concrete, and James dropped his phone, the screen cracking as they cuffed him. Kenneth acted alone, he'd claimed on TV hours ago, but the recordings told a different story. I watched them lead him out, his tailored suit wrinkling under their grip, and felt the weight lift. Not just from me, but from Mom, from Susan, from all of us he'd tried to bury. The warehouse emptied, leaving silence and the echo of justice, a sound louder than any lie he'd ever told. The courthouse steps buzzed with reporters, cameras flashing like lightning as Richard arrived for his arraignment, his designer suit clinging to a frame that couldn't hide the defeat in his eyes. Jessica squeezed my hand, her breath warm against the morning chill. Ready? Before I could answer, a voice cut through the crowd. Girls, wait! And we turned to see Susan, wheeled forward by Maggie and Emily, her strength radiating despite the chair. I need to face him too, she said, her gaze unwavering. Together we crossed the street, the press surging forward. Richard! Susan's voice carried, sharp and clear, freezing him mid-step. His composure cracked, a flicker of panic in his gray eyes. Susan, you can't be here. She wheeled closer, undeterred. Can't I? Like I couldn't keep my baby? Like I couldn't tell the truth? Reporters shouted, Mr. Hayes, did you separate twins at birth? And Richard snapped, Everything I did was for them, for better lives. You threatened Susan's care, made me live in fear. Jessica shot back, loud enough for the mics. How is that better? I stepped beside her. Mom knew everything. Ellen and Susan both did. They protected us, waited for this moment. His face paled. Ellen wouldn't. But Susan pulled out a folder. She did. Numbers don't lie, Richard. Inside, Pierce emerged in handcuffs, escorted by agents, and Richard called out, James! Tell them it was for the company! James shook his head. Sorry, Richard. Full cooperation for a reduced sentence. Richard lunged, only to be restrained, his roar of traitor drowned by the chaos. In the courtroom, Laura approached his table, placing her wedding ring before him. Annulments filed. I'm testifying for the prosecution. His pleas fell silent as the judge entered, charges ringing out. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, witness tampering. How do you plead? The judge asked. Richard looked back at us, fear naked in his eyes for the first time. Guilty, he whispered, and the room exploded, reporters racing to break the story. Outside, Emily met us with news. The board wants you both as joint CEOs. Susan beamed, and I felt Mom's promise settle into place. Not just vengeance, but victory, carved from the ashes of his lies. The autumn wind whipped around us, tugging at the flowers Jessica and I laid on Mom's grave, their petals bright against the gray stone. Susan's wheelchair creaked between us, her hands steady despite the chill as we placed Richard's sentencing papers beside the bouquet. 15 years. No parole. James got 8, Jessica said softly, her voice blending with the rustling leaves. They seized everything, accounts, properties, all of it. I nodded, the weight of victory settling into my bones. But it was Mom's presence I felt most, her promise a whisper in the wind. Susan touched the headstone, her fingers tracing Ellen's name. She'd be proud, not just for bringing them down, but for what you've built. Phoenix Trust had risen from the ashes of Richard's corruption. Every unethical deal exposed, every victim compensated. Jessica smiled, a rare softness in her eyes. Did you tell her about the foundation? I shook my head, picturing the Natasha Maria Foundation, renamed for Ellen and Susan, using seized assets to fund medical care for families silenced by greed. Susan, its first beneficiary, had paved the way for dozens more. My phone buzzed. Laura's text? Board meeting in an hour. Big announcement. Ready? I asked Jessica, but she hesitated, pulling an envelope from her coat. Almost. Found this in the storage unit yesterday, addressed to both of us. Another letter from Mom. Its paper faded, but her handwriting sharp. I opened it, reading aloud. My dearest twins, if you're reading this, you found each other, faced your father. But the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's creation. Build something true. A car door slammed nearby, and Maggie hurried toward us with a group of women. Former employees, families Richard had crushed, now foundation beneficiaries. They're here, she said, breathless. The press is waiting at Phoenix. The wind stilled, and I felt Mom's words take root. Justice wasn't the end, but the beginning. The conference room at Phoenix Trust hummed with reporters. Their cameras trained on Jessica and me at the podium, Susan, Laura, and our extended family of survivors behind us. I stepped forward, the weight of Mom's letter steadying me. Phoenix Trust isn't just a company. It's a promise to right the wrongs of the past. My voice carried, clear and firm, as Jessica took over, her presence a mirror to mine. Which is why we're announcing the Complete Transparency Initiative. Every document, transaction, decision, publicly accessible. The room erupted, questions flying like sparks, but we answered each one. No secrets, no lies. Laura leaned in, her voice soft. You're giving it all back. I nodded. We'd shared ownership with her, Susan, and the beneficiaries. A true phoenix rising together. Maggie slipped in, handing me a package, the last box from the storage unit. Inside, photos spilled out, Mom and Susan, pregnant, smiling, with hands on their bellies, united in a love Richard couldn't break. They knew, Jessica whispered, her eyes tracing their faces, knew we'd rebuild everything. I held up the photo for the cameras, the past fueling the future. This is why we're here, not to erase the cracks, but to fill them with gold. The reporters scribbled furiously, but my focus was on Susan's proud nod, Laura's quiet strength, the survivors' grateful smiles. Richard's empire was gone, replaced by something honest, something ours. As we left the podium, the sun dipped low, casting a golden glow over the room, a promise kept, a legacy born. Our shared office at Phoenix Trust felt alive. The walls once bare, now a tapestry of family, Mom and Susan in those pregnant photos, Jessica and me as babies, foundation recipients beaming. The golden sunset streamed through the windows, painting the cracks of our story with light, as Jessica pulled Mom's last letter from the safe. There's more, she said, handing it to me. I picked up where we'd left off at the grave, my voice steady. Making something whole isn't about erasing the cracks. It's about filling them with gold, making them part of the story. Your father split you apart, but he gave you the chance to choose each other, to choose truth, to choose love. Susan wiped tears from her eyes, her wheelchair framed by the glow. Both your mothers chose love. Every letter, every piece of evidence, it was for you. Emily handed us a document from legal, Richard's remaining shares, signed over to us. The company's yours now, she said, but Jessica and I shared a look. Not just ours, I replied, sliding the papers to Susan and Laura. We'd drawn up the split weeks ago, ownership shared with them, with the survivors, a family forged in fire. Jessica raised her coffee cup, the clink of mugs echoing as we joined her. Me, Susan, Laura, Emily. To the real Phoenix founders, she said, her voice thick with pride. To truth, Emily added. To justice, Laura chimed. To family, Susan finished, her smile radiant. I looked around at these women, my sister, our mother's legacies, our chosen kin, and felt Mom's words settle into my marrow. The cracks weren't flaws, they were gold-filled seams, making us stronger, more beautiful, more true. We'd built something worthy of the fight, a place where justice wasn't just served but shared, where family wasn't born but chosen, again and again, with every beat of our healing hearts. The champagne glass trembled in my hand, cold and fragile, like the memories threatening to spill over. I stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching my father, Richard Hayes, press his lips to Laura Bennett's, his new bride, all porcelain smiles and diamond gleam. Crystal chandeliers threw dancing shadows across the polished floor, where 200 guests in black ties and sequins raised their glasses to the happy couple. My stomach churned. 28 years of my life flickered through my mind, like a film reel on fast forward. Birthdays, arguments, the sterile hum of Mom's hospital room. But one memory hit harder than the rest, a tidal wave crashing against my ribs. Ellen Hayes, my mother, her voice a rasp against the morphine drip 2 years ago. Promise me you'll make things right, Caroline. I'm a forensic investigator. I sift through evidence, piece together truths from bloodstains and bank statements, deliver justice when the law's too slow. But nothing in my career prepared me for this. The band struck up a waltz, and Richard's silver hair caught the light, perfectly styled, like the image he'd spent decades curating. Wealthy businessman, philanthropist, devoted family man. If only they knew. Laura's veil fluttered as she laughed, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. James Sullivan, Richard's business partner, stood at the head table, glass raised high. A toast to the happy couple. His voice boomed, all charm and teeth. The room echoed with clinking crystal as champagne lifted in unison. My glass stayed rooted to the table, the bubbles fizzing out like my patience. Richard's eyes found mine across the sea of faces, that familiar warning tone cutting through the music. Stand up, sweetheart. Show some respect. The air thickened. Every head swiveled toward me. Laura's cousins, Richard's board members, strangers who'd bought his lies. I tightened my grip on the stem, the chill seeping into my palm. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a stage, and I was about to rip the curtain down. Mom's promise burned in my throat, a vow I couldn't swallow back. Not tonight. Not ever.